Alright, so combo number one is if you have just a singular copy of Circular. This card is absolutely nuts. It's easily the best card in the deck. And the most broken thing about Circular is that for its effect to special summon, it sends for cost. So we're going to be starting off with the effect of Circular. We're going to be sending a copy of Mathmech Sigma from our deck to our graveyard for cost. And then we'll special out our Circular. Next, since Sigma is in our graveyard and we control no monsters in our extra monster zone, we're able to special summon the Sigma, which will trigger the effect of Mathmech Circular when a Mathmech monster is normal or special summon. We get to add a Mathmech Speller Trap from our deck to our hand, and obviously we're going to be adding Super Factorial because this card is absolutely nuts. Next, we're going to be overlaying our two copies of Mathmech on the field into our copy of Albert Einstein. Next, when Albert Einstein is summoned, you can detach both the materials and then you can add a Mathmech card from your deck to your hand, and we'll be adding a copy of Mathmech Diameter. Now keep in mind, we haven't normal summoned yet, so next we are going to be normal summoning the Mathmech Diameter. Diameter's effect, for those who don't know, targets a Mathmech card in the graveyard to special summon. So we're going to be getting our copy of Circular, and the reason I like to target Circular instead of Sigma is just in the off chance that they do happen to have a DD Crow. I'd much rather them DD Crow the Circular here instead of the Sigma, because Sigma is our follow-up for the following turn. So I will special summon the Mathmech Circular here. So this is our hand. We're going to be linking off the Circular into a copy of Disciple. It doesn't matter which order you link these off into. Next, we'll be linking off the Diameter into a copy of Link Deviltee. For those who don't know, Deviltee has a mandatory effect on Summon, which locks you into level, sorry, not level 3, but Link 3, sorry, not even, it locks you into not being able to summon Link 3 or higher Link monsters. So, no Heat Soul here, none of that. We're locked into Link 2 or lower. And from here, you have two options. You can either Disciple, tribute the Deviltee, which will mean you get to mulligan back a card. So if you open this with like a side frame driver that you don't want, or maybe you're playing like the Sanctum Scythe engine and you drew Scythe, you can put that to the bottom of your deck, draw a new card. The only disadvantage here is that you end on one less body. The other thing you can do is you can actually use Alamberdian effect, which also tributes a monster. So you can tribute the Link Deviltee, so I'll show you that. And then you can special summon a Mathmech monster from either your hand or graveyard. So we'll just bring back Diameter. It doesn't really matter which one here. And since Deviltee was tributed, now you can special summon two Cyber's tokens. So we're just use these two Digimon cards I have, just because it's the closest thing to me to use for tokens. And next, so the way I like to link these off is, since the Alamberdium doesn't have the negate from the Diameter, it doesn't really matter if it's on the field or not. So I like to link these two off first. So we're going to link those off into a copy of Wicked. Next, link off the token into a copy of Lingaribo, which will then trigger the copy of Wicked, banishing the Alamberdian from the graveyard to add yourself a copy of Diameter. So now you have an interruption for your opponent's turn, an insane form of interruption, by the way, and you have follow-up for the following turn as well. And the reason that we go for the Lingaribo before the IP Masquerena here is because Lingaribo will protect our Wicked from impermanence. Not that you really care all that much about that, but better safe than sorry. Next, we'll link these two off, going into a copy of IP Masquerena. And the reason you like this is because on your opponent's turn, you now have an IP Masquerena that's protected from infinite impermanence and Ghost Ogre, because anything that Wicked points to can't be destroyed by card effects, and Lingaribo will protect the IP from impermanence. And if this resolves successfully after your opponent summons a monster, because you want to play around like, say like a Gamma or Imperm, or you want to play around as much as you can, right? So after your opponent summons a monster, now you can use your IP Masquerena in peace. You can make a 3-material Appaloosa, which will guarantee that your Super Factorial will resolve and that you won't lose to like a DD Crow or a Ghost Spell in the instance that they do have it, right? So to end your turn, all you'll do is set the Super Factorial, the Diameter is in your hand, and whatever other cards you have are in your hand as well. This was all a 1-card combo, so you still have a lot of other stuff to play around with. But we're just going to pretend we just ended off with this. So your opponent's turn starts, right? They do whatever. Maybe they'll start with a spell, or maybe they'll normal summon a monster. Doesn't matter. You'll use the IP Masquerena effect here. Get yourself an Appaloosa that has 2400 attack, meaning you have 3 negates that you can use. And after that, you can use Super Factorial, targeting the 3 Mathmech cards you have in your graveyard. So the Diameter, Circular, and the Sigma. And then you can use those to go into a copy of Lapellation. And in case you don't know what Lapilation does, you can detach up to 3 cards, and then you can choose to rip a card from your opponent's hand, send 1 monster from their field to the graveyard, and send 1 spell trap they control to the graveyard as well. So you can use all 3 of those effects if that comes up. So an instance where that would come up is actually if your opponent's on the Adventurer stuff. So Adventurer into Mathmech is really bad because you can send the token, Faithful, and then you get to rip a card from their hand, which is absolutely insane. And the other thing is, not only do you get to rip a card or you get to send some cards that they control, you also get an Omni Negate on this one. Now, remember, it's not one that negates activation. It just can negate any card effect, but that's still absolutely insane. The only thing is it won't destroy, and that can come up from time to time, but it's also not the worst thing in the world because either way you have a ton of interruption, so you're feeling pretty good about yourself here. Now, this looks really familiar to what you've just seen, right? So if you missed it or you just skipped combo number 1, essentially you might want to go back and check it out to see how we got here. But for combo number 2, this is a combo that is specifically against Tearlaments because you don't really want to rip from their hand blindly, and you don't really want to send their monsters to the graveyard because that is how you trigger their effects. So we have to play it a little bit differently. So you're still going to end on the same end board. You're going to be setting the super factorial, and you're going to be passing your turn. And like with the previous combo, the ideal scenario here is, and another thing you might want to consider, it might not be worth it to make the Lingerable here. It might be better to save this for a follow-up turn, because you might want to use one of your Mathmech monsters to make the Lingerable to play around them setting a trap card. I think that might be really, really effective. But let's just pretend that you do end on the same end board, right? So you have your IP Masquerena that you can use to make a Appaloosa with 3 negates on it because it'll have 2400 attack. And you still have your Diameter in hand, and in this instance the only thing that changes is what you're summoning off of the super factorial, and it makes a big difference. So you're not blindly ripping anything. You're going to be targeting these same 3 monsters in your graveyard, and you're going to be making another copy of Albert Einstein, because in case you didn't know, this card is insane. It has more than one effect depending on how many materials you detach from it. So the effect to detach 3 actually allows you to add any level 4 monster, and what happens to be a really good card against Tearlament? That's right, Skullmeister. So you'll be adding a copy of Skullmeister from your deck to your hand, and along with Skullmeister, you're going to be sitting on an Appaloosa with 3 negates and an Alamberdian with an Omni Negate. And that is absolutely how you destroy the Tearlament matchup. They will stand absolutely no chance unless they open the complete nuts. Alright, so for combo number 3, I'm going to show you what to do if you open Circular alongside with any extender in the deck. This could be Addition, it could be Subtraction, it could be Equation to Reborn something, it could be Parallel Exceed, it doesn't matter, right? But the only thing is you do have to play a specific card in your extra deck for this combo to work, and it's a good card to play if you do have the room for it. So this is what I like to do personally. So this is our hand, Circular Edition, right? We're going to be using Circular Effect to special summon himself, sending a copy of Sigma. Ooh, that is not Sigma. That is not Sigma. That is... We're going to be sending a copy of Sigma S cost to our graveyard. From here, we'll be using the Sigma effect to special summon itself from the graveyard. Since we control no monsters in our extra monster zone, that'll trigger the effect of Mathmech Circular since a Mathmech card was normal or special summon, which will add us our copy of Super Factorial. Next, we're going to do the same as the other combo. We're going to be overlaying these into our copy of Albert Einstein. Einstein's effect will trigger on summon, which will add us a copy of Diameter. Next will be normal summoning the Diameter, targeting, as I went over previously, the Circular. That is the ideal target out of the 2 in my opinion. And next we're going to be linking these off into the Link Disciple and Link Devotee, just as we did previously. There's only going to be one really minor change that's going to happen here. So we'll be using the Alamberdian effect, tributing the Devotee, bringing back a copy of Diameter. And since the Devotee was tributed, we are now able to special summon 2 Cyberse tokens to our field. And the next thing you'll want to do is you'll want to link off the Alamberdian and the Link Disciple and go into a copy of Cyberse Wicked. Next, you'll want to use the 2 tokens and you'll link them off to go into a copy of IP Masquerena. which will trigger the effect of Cyber's Wicked, allowing you to banish the Albert Einstein from the graveyard to add yourself a copy of Diameter. Now here's the one thing I didn't go over. Why do we banish the Alamberdian over any other card in our graveyard? And here's my reasoning. I like to have as many link materials in my graveyard as possible with different attributes, just to have access to pop more cards with access code in the follow-up turn. And the other thing is, for whatever reason, if I do want to summon another copy of Alamberdian to my field, right, I don't want to risk the possibility of my opponent having the one-of Called by the Grave. I know it's not a very likely scenario that they would even use it on that to begin with, but you do want to try to play around as many things as possible, and that is my reasoning for banishing the Alamberdian over anything else in the graveyard. So now that we got that out of the way, let's continue. We'll be using the addition effect. It doesn't matter what you target here, and then you'll special summon it. And after that, you'll be linking off these two, going into a copy of Pit Knight early. Now, for those of you that don't know, this is a new card out of Power of the Elements, and it just happens to be a TCG exclusive, which is why nobody was really talking about it until literally the week that it came out. Now, in case you don't know what this card does, when a monster it points to activates its effect, you can actually target one monster your opponent controls, change its attack to 0, and negate its effects. And that just happens to work really, really well with IP Masquerena. So what you can do is, for example, if you're going up against a Spright player, right? Imagine they normal summon Deep Sea Diva. You can chain IP Masquerena to the Deep Sea Diva as Chainlink 2. And after that, if your opponent has no response, you can chain the Pit Knight early, targeting the Deep Sea Diva, changing its attack to 0, negating its effects. And from there, you resolve the IP Masquerena, going into your copy of Appaloosa. And this is, of course, if we have the Super Factorial set, right? We're just doing a hypothetical scenario, just going over what the card does. But yeah, that's why I really, really like it. It's just an additional interruption, and I think it works really well against Spright, which is why I feel like this is one of the stronger end boards to end on if you have the extender. A lot of people just go for the Lingerable just to get the access to the 3-negate Appaloosa, and the extra deck for Mathmech is really tight. But if you can make the room for Pit Knight, I really do think it's worth it, especially since Spright is one of the best decks of the format. Pit Knight also has a hidden effect that I really like, where if it's destroyed by battle or card effect, in the end phase of that same turn, you can actually bring it back, which gives you a link to material to work with on your follow-up turn in case your opponent was able to play through your board. And since you have Pit Knight and you have a copy of Diameter for follow-up guaranteed, you're in a really, really good position. Now, to end your turn, you're obviously going to be setting the Super Factorial, and here's how I think about it. You have one interruption in Pit Knight early. You're going to be making a 3-material Appaloosa, right? Which is another 3 negates, so that's 4 interruptions in total. And then you have the Super Factorial, which is like an additional 2 interruptions, right? Because you get to send a monster from their field to the graveyard. If they have a spell or trap, you get to send that too, and you get to rip a card from their hand. So in total, you have at least 6 interruptions here, and that's not even taking into account your other 4 cards, sorry, not 4 because this was a 2-card combo, but your other 3 cards in your hand, which could be hand traps as well, right? So at minimum, this is looking like 6 interruptions, and your opponent is going to have a really, really difficult time playing around this. Combo number 4, and this one is really cool, and I think one of my favorite combos in the deck, and if you ever resolve this, oh my God, this is just the most satisfying thing in the world. So if you have Circular and you have a copy of Sphere Mode, you can actually OTK your opponent, and I think that's so crazy. These are the 2 cards in your hand. Let's say your opponent has 3 monsters on their field. Obviously, you're going to attribute all the annoying negates that they have on their board, and you're going to be summoning the Sphere Mode to their side of the field. I'm only going to put it in the extra monster zone here, just for clarity's sake, just so all you guys can see it, because clearly my camera is not pointing to the other side of the field. So next, we're going to be using the Circular effect in our hand. We're going to be sending a copy of Sigma from our deck to the graveyard. Same old, nothing new there. We're going to be summoning the Circular. Next, you'll be activating the effect of Sigma. Since we have nothing in our extra monster zone, we can special summon it from our hand or graveyard. And that will trigger the effect of Circular. And here's where things get a little bit different. Instead of adding the Super Factorial, we're going to be adding a copy of Mathmech Equation. So next, we're going to be overlaying into our copy of Albert Einstein, our favorite Xyz monster in the extra deck. We're going to be using the Einstein effect on summon, detaching 2, and instead of adding the Diameter like we normally do, since we've already used our normal summon on Sphere Mode, that's really inefficient, that doesn't work, right? So what we add instead is actually a copy of Mathmech Multiplication, and this is what makes the OTK work. So we've already used our normal summon, but the really cool thing is we can reborn from our graveyard, and Alamberdian has an effect where he contribute a monster on the field, including himself, to special summon a Mathmech from the hand or graveyard. So I feel like you can kind of already see where this is going. So first thing first, we're going to do the Alamberdian effect just to see if it resolves, and we're going to be summoning back the... Sorry, not summoning back. We're going to be summoning the Mathmech multiplication from our hand to the field. Next, we'll be activating the Mathmech equation in our hand to target our Sigma, since it is the tuner that we need in order to go into Final Sigma and summon it to our field. Next, we'll be activating the effect of multiplication, doubling the level of Sigma, making it a level 8 monster. We'll be synchro summoning these two off, going into our copy of Final Sigma, and activating the effect of multiplication in the graveyard to make the attack of Final Sigma a total of 6,000. And the cool interaction here is, yes, Spear Mode usually cannot be targeted for attacks, but since Mathmech Final Sigma is unaffected by the effects of all card effects, and I'm sure some judges are gonna cringe at this terminology, I'm not a judge, so don't hate me here. Mathmech can actually bypass the restriction of not being able to attack Spear Mode thanks to it being unaffected by card effects, and you know what that means. We're going to go into the battle phase, we're going to take our Final Sigma, we're going to swing it into the Spear Mode, and that is going to be a whopping 12,000 points of damage, which is more than enough to kill your opponent. And if you're wondering why it's 12,000, not just 6,000, that's because Final Sigma does double damage. Now you can't tell me that's not absolutely crazy. You've just Spear Moded your opponent, and you've OTK'd them in the same turn without your normal summon. This has to be absolutely one of the coolest combos in the current game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I absolutely love it. It's definitely a really cool one to know. And with that said, that'll conclude the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you were able to learn something. If you did enjoy the video, please remember to like and subscribe. This is Bear, signing off. Peace, guys.